My design is made up of two images you can see on the screen, the first being the background image and the logo as my foreground image. With both of them selected, I go to the Layout menu and select See-Through Sign Wizard. I now confirm I have read the license agreement and click Next. To achieve a vision control panel using this option, I will need to produce the job on a printer that can print white, and in this next window I'll specify any base layers to be used. For my example, I'm going to use a base layer of white to gain a good level of opacity. For different effects, like finishing the backing layer in black, it's possible to add multiple layers and then specify the colours you want those layers to be. To apply more than one base layer, you will need a printer that can rewind, but bear in mind here that multiple layers on an inkjet printer will require longer drying times between them, and this could make using too many layers impractical with this type of device. So I'm going to go ahead and select one, and then specify the colour of that layer, which will be spot foil white. Next, in the Sign Layout window, I will define my back and foreground objects. Also here I have the option to add a highlight white. Applying this will mean that additional white ink will be added at the same time as the other colours. The result of doing this will be a greater white opacity on my image, which is ultimately what I want to achieve. In the Substrate Position window, I basically need to choose whether to produce the graphics for application on the outside or inside of the glass. For this example, it will be the outside. This next window is where the main choices start, and it really is a matter of what you want to achieve with your image. I'm going to be adding clear spaces to my design to create a vision control panel. If I tick the box here, then the spaces I choose will be applied globally across both back and foreground objects. I'm going to leave this box unticked because I want the spaces to be omitted from my foreground image. Next to pattern selection. Selecting custom pattern will let me define a series of transparent lines across my image, whereas predefined pattern will allow me to customize and apply clear spaces. First, let's look at an example of custom pattern, and then we'll return to the other option later. I can choose the size of the solid and see-through stripes respectively, as well as the angle of the stripes. To give you an example, I'll enter a 5mm line and 5mm stripe and keep my angle at 0. I can now click Next and make my final choices in the foreground settings window. Here I have the option to apply different settings to the selected foreground option. Selecting None will apply no lines through the object, whilst this second option will allow me to apply lines through the foreground object and also specify the thickness of those lines. To apply a border around the image, I'd need to select this third option and then specify a border width. Lastly, I have the option to uncheck Prevent lines from back group being applied to holes in the front group. This will ensure that the lines being applied to my background image continue through existing gaps in my foreground image. Look at this example here. If I check this box, the lines through the image are not seen through the holes in the letter B. This is a simple choice of personal preference, but I find the foreground image stands out far better with this option unchecked. Clicking Next and Finish will return me to my Synlab screen, and my design is ready for output. With the image complete, you can see how effective this type of advertising can be. The image has more impact, is more interesting, and was simple to produce using Synlab's step-by-step guide. The other option here would have been to apply clear spaces rather than stripes. I'm going to return to that part of the wizard and show you an example of that method. This time, rather than custom pattern, I'll use predefined pattern. I've chosen a different image for this example with no separate foreground image, as I want to apply my clear spaces across the whole design. Okay, here I can select the type of spaces to be used and the cell size. There are several patterns to choose from in this drop down menu. It's also possible to create custom patterns in Synlab and save them to this menu for future use. That's exactly what I have done to create the pattern I wish to use, which is this dolphin. These patterns can be created from things like clip art images or even company logos, and it takes just a few simple steps to create them. In Synlab I have a vectored path of the dolphin. I got this image from the animal section of the CADLinks font and clip art CD-ROM. The first step is to draw an equal-sided square on the screen and then place the pattern in the center. Now I select both objects and go to the transform menu and select render see-through pattern. Now it's a simple case of assigning a name for the pattern. The default resolution and color depth can be left as they are. Now when I click OK, the pattern will be added to the see-through sign wizard for future use. OK, so returning to the wizard with the dolphin selected as my pattern, I only need enter a cell size, and for this example I'm leaving it on the default setting. However, you can easily change the size to suit your design. Remember, this example is one complete image with no separate foreground image, therefore when I click next my design will be finalized and ready to output. If I had used a design with a separate foreground image like the previous example with stripes on, I would have had the opportunity here to specify different patterns and cell sizes for that foreground image.